Said 666.
If you were in worship, you heard that, but just the topic of today, we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of just a really sad milestone within the greater story of the Middle East and the tumult that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I don't know how you all are thinking about that, but in my own life, it just brings me so much sadness. And I have never visited the Holy Land, although that's something that pastors do, right? And sometimes pastors lead members of the congregation on trips to the Holy Land. And that is something I've always imagined doing. And I'll tell you right now, it just feels like further and further away from a possibility. And it doesn't feel like a place I want to visit right now, but I desperately would love to be able to go spend some time there. And I know there are people in this room that have been there. And so eager to hear some of your maybe perspective later on in this discussion, but to kind of frame our conversation today, we are going to watch a video that was, this video is about 20 minutes long. You can see there, it's 23 minutes long, and it was produced 5 years ago or thereabouts. So it's before this most recent conflict. And it's interesting to watch it knowing that. First of all, it'd be hard to imagine. What you'll see here is a conversation that is facilitated between 3 young Israelis and 3 young Palestinians, young 20-somethings, I would say, maybe into their 30s. And, you know, they've lived their lives within this tension that exists between the Jewish and Palestinian states. And so we're, it really is very thought-provoking. There, hopefully the subtitles will come up automatically, but if not, Chris, will you make that happen right away? I think it says the closed caption is set, so yeah, it should be okay. And if they're embedded, it might try to do 2 sets, so we've got to watch out for that. So anyways, but because a number of them speak with some fairly thick accents, and so you may not be able to quite pick up everything. But anyways, that's enough of an introduction. I think we should watch the video, take note of what stands out to you, and because this question is, you can see at the very top, can Israelis and Palestinians see eye to eye? And I'm going to ask that of you after you watch this video and see how you react to that. So thank you.
Because A, it's not your land. B, you mentioned Jerusalem.
You can tell me that, please. Don't say that.
When it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I think I'm mostly emotionally sad.
I think it's not fair that, a country that is peaceful be in a situation where we have to be threatened.
Being an Arab girl living inside of the Israeli state, it's pretty hard for me to find exactly who I am.
We're the Palestinians. We still live under occupation, so we have no power.
I believe that every person, Jew, Christian, Muslim, should be full equal citizens under Israeli sovereignty.
We need just to end this conflict between us because we don't need the other generations to live the life that we live in.
We continue to do what we did until now, it's probably going to stay, and we need to do something else.
My name's Hannah Ziad. I'm 24 years old, and I'm an Arabian YouTuber.
My name is Dorit Sadon. I'm 25 years old, and I'm a Jewish Israeli Zionist.
My name is Bara Abdo. I'm from Nablus, 25 years old, studied public relations and communications.
My name is Khaled Zohar. I'm from a small town called Givat Ze'ev, right outside of Jerusalem, and I'm 24 years old.
My name is Arab Aramin. I'm 24 years old and from Jerusalem.
My name is Ron Bar Shafat. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a deputy director of a think tank that deals with law and economics.
I have my Israelis on the left, my Palestinians on the right. Someone I know has died because of this conflict.
My father was murdered by 2 IDF soldiers. It hit us hard, especially for my family. We're only girls. And inside of the Arabic nation, that's really hard.
My friend, when I was 10 years old, Israeli sniper shoot at her in her head. So that was really hard for us.
I grew up during the second Intifada. I carry a list with me of all my friends who were murdered in terror attacks. So I have a list of 27 people that were actually very close to me. In Israel, we have a Memorial Day, so I have always a dilemma to which grave to go to.
On 16th of January 2007, an Israeli soldier shot and killed my sister Abir. She was 10 years old in front of her school, and I was 13. We were 6 kids in the house. After that, we became 2 sisters and 3 brothers.
All of the people that I know have lost someone to the war in some way. And I think like grief is such a universal emotion. And like I want to hug all of you.
I served in the IDF. I still serve in the Army Reserves, combat. I was very combat in the second Intifada, and I feel your grief, and I understand it. But I have to say that I never got an order to shoot someone. The order was only to shoot if someone is a threat to your life or a threat to someone else's lives.
I also served in the IDF, and they really do just teach us to defend ourselves. If we're not defending ourselves and we do kill someone, we go to jail.
That's not true. That's true.
I can tell you something. The soldier that killed my sister, he didn't spend 1 day in there.
Neither did my father. Both of them that murdered him did not stay 1 day in jail.
I believe a 2-state solution is possible.
Okay, I think the Palestinians, they will not stop saying that we want a country. So in the end, if we got to the point that we have our state and they have their state, so no problem.
It's gonna be better for us to live all of us together, which is no state like Palestinian, no state like Israeli, only together and having peace together. Like there is no walls and there is no checkpoints, which is happening right now.
I'm with you. 1 state under Israel's sovereignty, and everyone's full equal citizen. All right, okay, but under Israeli sovereignty, because right now why is that a problem?
Why should it be on one? Why should one religion control it? Why
It's
can't
not a
it be?
religion, it's a nationality. It's my nationality.
So if we stay one state with the Palestinian, they control it, you can live under it?
No, because
So
A, it's not your land. B, you mentioned Jerusalem.
you can tell me that, please, don't say
I'm
that.
saying 100%.
Well,
Palestine used to meant,
I can ask you one question?
Yes.
Please answer it. Your grandfather, you know where he is?
Yes.
Where he is?
To give me how many graves you want me to count?
7 before.
7 before, I know, yes.
Where?
7 before is in Hungary.
In Hungary. 9 before, he's in Palestine. Don't tell me it's not your land.
I'm saying it's not your land.
It's our land. And it's will stay and will be.
Like, how do you determine this is our land and it's not their land based on what?
History, international law, interest, solidarity.
Yes, how about empathy?
I have empathy. I'm just not willing to give up on my identity and what I believe is mine.
I'm afraid of the other side.
When I say that I'm afraid, what I basically mean is I'm afraid of going into Gaza because I know that if I will go into Gaza, I might get shot, someone might kill me.
I think I hesitated a little bit because I don't think I'm afraid of the people on the other side. I think I'm afraid of the gap and sort of almost equally afraid of like, you know, that side taking all of the responsibility for what is happening, or this side taking all of the responsibility for what is happening, which is obviously not working.
Well, that's fair enough. I don't believe that all Palestinians are terrorists because that doesn't make sense. But I do believe that who is in charge, they're leading the Palestinians to, you know, hating us and in a way that, you know, it is really unfair.
I'm against what you said. They're not the Islam, because Islam didn't say killing people or having blood. Don't belong that
But
to
what
the
about
Islam.
the radical Muslims? The radical Muslims that come and do these things, what do you have to say
They're
about
not
it?
part of us. We never accept them as Muslims because they're teaching hate. And in a way, I accepted what you just said about there's a big problem with our governments. They don't know how to talk to each other. And in my idea, I really think the people are the ones that should be talking to each other.
I agree, and I have to say, I also don't think there's an issue with Muslims, but I disagree with you about the fact that it's about land. There's several peace talks. They were offered 97% of the land. 98 would have done it. I disagree.
But after deciding with the land, they came and they built more settlements.
What's wrong with Jews living in Judea?
That's not the problem. The problem is that we actually talked about this land being for these people, and in the end, when we see Israelis coming in and actually building houses, that's showing us you guys don't want peace.
I trust my sources of information on the conflict.
I serve in the IDF, so first of all, I trust myself and my officers. I do think that a lot of the information I'm getting is not accurate, which is why I try to compare it with different sources, and I also try to see it from people, what they think, what they feel.
I don't trust everything I see on the news, that's for sure. I do believe, again, there are two sides to every single story, but I do see things that are happening. For instance, you know, things like the rockets that are striking or the stabs that are happening. Those things I do trust because I can see that they're happening and they're just unfair.
Like I see the narrative being written as like I watch TV. I know how important and how powerful language is and how it can create reality. And like I can see it. I'm like, this is really dangerous. Like on both sides, it's really dangerous.
Overseas media that I see, they're always against Israel for things that are not necessarily our fault.
I find it very funny because we look at it as and start saying that they're really with Israel, which is funny. I find it kind of funny. But no, I seriously do find the information that we're getting has more as an agenda to it from both sides.
I don't believe in social media. Like from the Israeli side, gonna support Israel. From the Palestinian side, gonna support Palestinians. People are gonna be very confused, and I'm gonna be very confused about the reality.
So let's say that the question was the sources, so it doesn't have to be just social media and reports like this. Like I also trust the reports that the Israeli security forces publish.
But they are
Don't
kind of
trust
in
everything.
their ideas, not about the reality and the situation, but their ideas. How do they see this situation?
And
It's
also,
not really what happened.
Political leaders on my side to make compromises for peace.
if we continue to do what we did until now, it's going to continue as it was now. And I don't see it getting better. Our leaders should have our lives and the best for us in their minds. And so it's not compromising. Like peace is never compromising.
The Palestinian politician, they in the end they want a peace for themselves and for their people, but they have no power because the power it's not in their hands, it's in the other side.
I would like for us to compromise only if you will be able to compromise. It doesn't make sense that every time that we have a war, it's always started by your side. The other day, I just heard about, over 1,800 acres of crops have been burnt by, Hamas, who have been sending it over to Israel. Instead of, spending all that money in order to ruin us, why don't they spend it on taking care of Palestine?
Well, one second. You're talking about Hamas. You're talking about Gaza. Gaza is so far from us. We don't know what's going over there. We don't know. If you can ask me about the West Bank, I'm gonna answer, and I think you as well.
But here's the way I see it, when you're talking about compromise. Hamas's charter says murder the Jews wherever they are. In the PA that are
You're
hold
going back to
on.
Hamas.
But the PA that are the
You're
moderates.
going back to Hamas.
But the PA, the
We're not
Palestinian
talking
Authority,
about
the
this.
Palestinian Authority, let me finish. The Palestinian Authority that are the moderates, they're saying it's a death sentence if you sell your house to a Jew. Are there racist people in Israel? Of course. Are there racist people everywhere in the world? Yes. But we condemn people who are acting violently, and the other side glorifies it.
Violence is sometimes justified.
Oh, I don't know.
If you're going to attack Israel, then Israel is going to defend themselves. And that means when it comes to certain things, maybe not you specifically, but again, to the radical Muslims, we have to. Because if we don't, then there's not going to be a state of Israel anymore.
No, I don't think it's a matter of Israeli Arabs or Jewish Christians. Sometimes in life you have to use violence. I hope it'll be close to zero as possible. But if I see someone about to murder someone else, I think it's okay for me to use violence to stop that. I think violence is not allowed for a political goal. I think that's a bad place to use violence. I prefer talking and having a discourse.
Okay, I didn't grow up with a lot of violence, with zero violence. But what I want to say, the same as you said, who comes to my house to break the door to take my father, of course I will defend for myself. So it's called a violence, but I want to defend for myself.
First of all, I am against violence 100%. It's a freaking circle that's going to keep on happening over and over again.
For me, if you're gonna react for the violence with violence, so here we go. We're having like the same problems, the same generation who's raised with hatred and violence and love blood, which is not acceptable.
Having a homeland for my people is important to me.
I think that Israel needs to be our homeland, because if we won't have a homeland, no one else is going to accept us anywhere else, especially because there's a lot of racism and anti-Semitism as well. So if we're not going to be here, where are we going to go?
Okay, for me as a Muslim, the Holy Land, why it's so important. First of all, because I was born here. I have no place, another place.
Every single person around the world have the right to live in the place that they were born in. And that the right for Palestinians, also for, if we're gonna talk about refugees, also, they have the right to come back here to their lands, to their homes, and have their places.
The fact that we came back to our homeland and that we do have a country and a government here, for me, like, it does feel like a miracle. But I also think that the fact that we do have the power now gives us more responsibility, and that we can't just base it on the fact that it's our homeland and not hear other voices saying we feel the same about the same place.
I often question my place in this conflict.
All the time, I question if it's more dialogue, more force, more conversations, more social media. I always ask myself, what is the best thing? I tend to believe that the best thing is human interaction.
A lot of times I take a step back from like the political argument about the conflict and all that, just because I feel like unworthy and that I don't know enough.
So in my way, I've always known what I am in this conflict. I always knew I wanted to fight for peace. That's all I knew, and that's all I will ever know. I never was in the idea of this conflict until my father passed away. And then I had to think for myself.
I always was asking my father why I was born. And his answer, not to kill, to live, to be in life. And when my sister, she got killed, I went back to him to tell me. He told me I was born to live, not to kill. But my sister, she was born to die. The Palestinians, they didn't kill 6 million Israelis. And the Israelis still, they didn't kill 6 million Palestinians. There is a Germanian embassy in Tel Aviv, and there is a German Israeli embassy in Germany. So it's a big hope. It's always gives me a hope when I'm looking at this and thinking a little bit about this.
I gotta say, I think it's nice slogans. I don't think that's the case. Israel has a peace treaty with Egypt because Egypt was willing to have peace with Israel. Israel has a peace treaty with Jordan because the Jordanians were willing to have peace treaty with Israel.
Also, from one to one, it's different. How the way you think
I
it.
agree, which is exactly why I don't believe in a peace between the two sides, because in my understanding of reality, the whole concept of Palestinian nationality,
Because you don't accept Palestinians.
I accept human beings. I'm saying that the whole concept of Palestinian nationality is one goal, and that is the annihilation of Israel. When Jordan took over Judea and Samaria, when Egypt took over Gaza, no one asked for a
But
Palestinian.
you're combining everyone into one ideology, which is not right.
Why? What do you mean?
You're saying because they're saying that they're Palestinian, this is what they want, which is
No.
not true.
I take it back. The Palestinian government, the Palestinian Authority.
There.
Okay, I'm not saying.
No,
I agree. It's different. I'm going to say, okay, I don't refer to the Arabs of Judea and Samaria as Palestinians. I refer to them as Arabs of Judea and Samaria.
If we were gonna live long age or long years, we're gonna see each other.
Great.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have it.
Palestinians, you can have it.
No, I'm talking about peace. We're gonna have it here.
I would like to sit down and share a meal with everyone.
Yes, please.
Hello. I'm Johnny. I'm Ido. Shalom. Salam alaikum. So there's on top some passion fruit juice, which gives a kick to So how was the experience, guys?
For me, it was perfect. Was good. It was a good meeting.
It was topsy-turvy. It was upside down.
Yeah.
At the beginning, yeah. Because like you don't know who's in front of you, you don't know their ideas, their ideology, what they think about you.
I think we did come to some sort of an agreement that we both do want peace.
Not everyone. I want security, freedom, and prosperity.
You're talking about legal peace.
I don't want a piece of paper that says peace. I want to live in peace. I don't want a piece of paper that says we have a peace treaty.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't agree because I don't believe in a Palestinian state, and you think you should have like a two-state solution. So we don't agree. It's also
No, but then we did say we wanted a one-state solution.
Israel with everyone equal. I'm fine with it.
Exactly. Well, I learned from you that you have a lot of sympathy for our side as well, even though your sister passed away, which is terrible. She didn't pass away, she was murdered. But I can see that you also have sympathy for the other side, and you actually are trying to, communicate with us, even though you went through everything that you had to go through on your end. And I definitely learned that we can learn to love your side as well. Or I could learn to love your side as well.
I think this is the main point for our maybe conflict, that we do not hear from each other. So I think it's important to hear from each other, not just keep your thoughts and ideas inside your head and don't try to open this box. Just try to open it.
We want really similar things. Yeah, and sort of, you feel like, you know, my friends from back home. And so the realization that we do have the same sort of language, not in like the language that we speak, but in our body language and the things that interest us and the future that we hope for ourselves and for our families. Like, there are no sides. Like, I can't draw a line and say, okay, I'm like these people or I'm with these people.
Hey guys, this is Jason.
And this is John.
And I just want to say thank you so much for watching a really special episode of Middle Ground. We love this series because it's an opportunity now more than ever to create dialogue and create radical empathy.
This was a challenge, but also a privilege to get to go to Jerusalem to film this dialogue around a subject that is, you know, very tricky and very difficult, but we loved having the challenge.
Totally. We want to say a huge shout out to YouTube and Creative for Change, which gave us the resources and the support to do this. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about the episode and the various perspectives in the comments below. And also let us know what other suggestions for Middle Ground you have. We want to do more episodes.
Okay. For the benefit of our conversation today, I got an extra long cable on this microphone, and I'm gonna insist that you talk into this microphone if you want to share something. It gets captured better on our video for those who are joining us online or will watch this later or want to be a part of this conversation together. But you were set up in some little discussion spots there, and I want you to kind of gather into those little groups for just a little bit here, just so you can have a little bit more conversation and in your little discussion pods, and share just one thing with each other that, you know, I'm sure lots of things jumped out at you. Just name one thing that really caught your attention, that you sort of maybe had a moment of aha, or maybe a moment of that's right, or something along those lines. So just amongst yourselves in your little four-person groupings there, take a couple of minutes, and I'll pull you back together in about 5 minutes. That's which go ahead.
So Israel our land, we're gonna fight. This is.
There's more to it than that. Primary. Others.
But Israel is the naval palace.
I'm gonna give you a 60-second warning.
Because they couldn't squeeze it out.
Okay, I've got three of the statements or questions that they put before those 6 very brave young people. Hannah, Bara'a, and Arab were the Palestinians, and Dorit, and I can't figure out how to pronounce. She said it, and the letters didn't match up with what I heard, but it was spelled Tchelet. Who knows? And then Ron, I got that one. RAN, but yeah, those were the Israelis, and just so vulnerable with their stories and the pain that they all mentioned at the very beginning, and there really was, I thought, a pretty beautiful arc portrayed, and and then the imagery of sharing the meal at the end, right? The gift that was. But three of the things that stood out that I want to put before you all, and rather than have you get to the sides of the room and then have you come take a seat, just raise your hand if you would answer affirmatively to this. I trust my sources of information. Not a one of you. No. In your life. I trust my sources of information. Raise your hand if you would say that. You trust your sources. So only about a third of you, mostly.
Question.
Yeah.
Are the sources of information on this issue or sources of information in general? What was the question?
Maybe it'd be helpful if I narrowed it, maybe to just the talk about the information we get about the Palestinian conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe let's focus on that, since that's our topic for today. So, do you trust your sources of information on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? None of you. None of you. How do we make sense of that? How are we to respond? Anybody have a thought on that?
Have serious advocating, trust but verify. Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. That's a phrase that we hear
Yeah.
time. So how do you verify? You got to go travel there and like see with your own eyes, right?
Or multiple sources of information.
Yeah.
Compare.
Yeah.
Learn who tells the truth. Seems to tell the truth. Like there's a 1440 newsletter I like. They have a balanced way of doing things, and that's just for all subjects. Right?
Compare what you read over here with what you're reading over here.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta get multiple sources, right? Yeah. Sort of, don't just get caught in one loop of one news program, whatever it might be. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
If there's any way to listen to the people and not the authorities, who's ever maybe representing people's voices?
Great. Benjamin Netanyahu was here in the United States clarifying everything for all of us Americans, and also authorizing an attack that killed the leader of Hezbollah. While he was here in the United States in a hotel, he authorized that action. Right? Saying, to us, the American people, trust him, stay with us, stay with this process. Yeah, Peter.
You'd have to walk up here to get to the mic.
Can you walk towards me, and then I can get a cable. There you go.
So when people are talking, there's always a spin, but we can also just look at the pictures.
Yeah. We don't get to see everything look at the pictures, just rather than just trusting the stories is what, pictures of a destroyed Gaza, right? Like this is the reality that those people are living there. Did anybody struggle like I did, which was like, could you imagine these 6 young people today? Could they get those 6 people back together again today? Now, the 3 Palestinians, hopefully you picked up, they don't live in Gaza. They're all West Bank folks, or Jerusalem-based, which is the edge of West Bank. And they were quick to distance themselves from Hamas, which political, I should have looked it up. When did Hamas win the election in the Palestinian Authority to gain the majority control of the Palestinian Authority? That was probably about this time when this was maybe been filmed, about 5 years ago.
It was 2006.
Oh, 6, longer than that. So 18 years ago. Thank you, John. Yeah, so, but the youth in this, the Palestinians really they wanted to distance themselves. No, but the Palestinian Authority would be the government that we support, and we could unite behind that. And they really, but how large is the population of Gaza in comparison to the West Bank? Significantly larger, more of a presence, and obviously the target of a lot of the threat right now. Maisie, yes.
I just don't understand who.
Hold on a second.
I don't understand who Hamas is.
Does anybody in the room have special knowledge, or I can attempt to answer that? Yeah, so Hamas is was one of the militant groups that formed after the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. Somewhat in relatively recent history, within the last 30 years.
Either Israeli or Palestinian.
No, it's Palestinian, yeah. Supported initially out of Egypt, so the southern part of Israel. And after Egypt signed its peace accords with Israel, Hamas continued to keep their identity as a militant organization. And they're a militia. And they continue to wreak havoc in Israel. But over time, as why am I blanking on his name? The Palestinian longtime leader. Arafat, Yasser Arafat, thank you. When Arafat started to bring a coalition of government together, or a vision for a unified Palestinian Authority, Hamas took on they started to act more politically and less like a militia, trying to find their way. And they ultimately, when the Palestinian Authority then was structured, and people were voting for their representatives of the Palestinian Authority, Hamas became a political party that people could vote for leaders that identified as Hamas. And so they created control. And then in 2006, a majority of the Palestinian Authority Parliament, or I'm not sure what the body is called, were representatives of Hamas. And the leader of the Palestinian Authority was the leader of Hamas. And yet they continue to maintain and wreak havoc in the background with terroristic acts, and continue to be supplied by not only Egypt, but Iran. And so Iran is a big engine and supplier of it's Iran's weapons on one side, and whose weapons on the other? Who makes those weapons? We do, here in the United States. That's right. We provide the security support for the state of Israel here in the United States, our defense industry. And it's big business, big business. How do you stop that? Different question, sorry. All right, another thing they want. Raise your hand if you would say this. I'm going to expand this, not to just, because I've just sort of introduced the United States' role in all of this. I want our leaders to make compromises for peace. Raise your hand if you would say that. I want our leaders to make compromises for peace. Now, almost all of you are raising your hand. Did you hear how much the group struggled with almost sort of like the definition? Yeah, your leaders should compromise for peace. You know, kind of like, you know, recognizing we've got two sides here. And I'm all for compromise. Your compromise to my principles would be the perfect way forward. Great. Yeah, Gary, reflect on that.
What I heard from some of what they were saying was that, and we've probably all known this before, land is the issue. Whose land is it? And I mean, they both claim it as their home, which is appropriate, probably.
Right.
But I remember when we were on a tour in Israel, Palestine, in 2005, was it, Gene? I can't remember.
Before that.
And before that, okay. And we had a Palestinian guide. It was a Palestinian-led tour, so you get a different flavor. And Naim Khoury was his name, and he said, you know, when you read in Genesis, Abram came from Ur of the Chaldees, and he came in because God had told him to come, and this was going to be their land. And he said, we were already here. We were living here.
You're right.
Said,
Yeah, the land was not empty.
No. So, I mean, so that's a huge issue there. May I say one thing more? Just an observation that has bothered me for a long time. In 1947 or 48, I know Israel was established in 48, but there was a Balfour Declaration in England that established the state for Israel. That was implemented in 1948. What they did not do is establish a place for the Palestinians at the same time. Huge error, I think.
We had a forum, and you can go back and watch it online too, where we really sort of trace the history of the Middle East and Palestine, and sort of how did we get to this place that we're at today. You know, certainly not in depth and super comprehensive, but it, you know, you see the territories, but people whose lives, the one young man, Arab, you know, kept saying, how long is your, you know, how many generations back do you go? And well, 3 generations ago, his family was in Hungary. We know why. He's in Israel, right? But the Palestinians said 9 generations he could count back. And, you know, whose land is it, right? Whose land is it? Does God want us, if God brought Sarah and Abraham to the Holy Land, to this place sandwiched between the ocean and the river, and God knew there were other people there, was God's imagination that God's people would be the exclusive users and occupiers of that land? Or did God already have in mind a shared existence and a mutual presence?
That would be my view.
Right? Yeah. This is where the theologians get involved.
Yeah.
But that makes you want to say something.
Think of the story of Abraham and Melchizedek. You know, I mean, that was a priest that was not of Hebrew descent, and yet was the voice of God in that story. I mean, it's as long as Abraham was a minority, and he had to buy land to be buried in, you know, I mean, there's all that stuff. When you're a minority, you're causing us problems. Except in Israel and Palestine now, of course. But you know, the one of the Palestinians used the word reservation. On the reservation, I have no power, and it makes me think of our own situation and the hundreds of years where we have oppressed our native population, and a lot of it has to do with names too. I think, you know, you hear the Indians say, well, we're Indian because someone was thought they were in a different place in the world, or we're American because we got named after an Italian explorer, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, there's always these problems with names, and you've got Palestinian, which is an ancient name going back to the Phoenicians and Palestine and that culture, and the Philistines. That's all related. And then you've got Israel, and you mentioned Judea. So you've got these names. You need to find a neutral name and, you know, talk about human beings instead of Israelis as being Jewish, the Jewish population, and the Palestinians as being the Arab, the Christian, or the Muslim.
Good point. Yeah, the one young man, Ron, he's like, he didn't want to call them Palestinians. He wanted to call them Arabs of Judea and Samaria. He was trying to sort of, I think, honor a historical geography without placing them into Palestine, which is really a modern understanding of that particular place, and to call them Palestinians or Palestinian Arabs, he thought it would be, his approach was to call them Arabs of Judea and Samaria. So yeah, which is an interesting take. One more question for you to raise your hand or not. And this ties to our story today in Scripture. Violence is sometimes justified. You agree? Raise your hand. Violence is sometimes justified. Marilyn, I'm going to pick on you. You raised your hand. Give me a little background on why you think that.
I think it's rarely, but if I saw a child being attacked and perhaps killed with a weapon by somebody else, I would stand up and at least interpose, if not actually try to
get your fists up. Yeah, right. Yeah. Violence is sometimes justified.
Rarely.
Yeah. Today's story from Exodus. If you haven't been to worship, it's the story of the Passover. God wreaks tremendous violence upon the people of Egypt. Heartbreaking, heart-softening violence. And this is the God who claims us and loves us and cares for us. And that God uses violence in this story. God used violence in the Noah story. God uses violence throughout Scripture in many, many ways. How do we as people of faith reconcile that? Anybody have a thought? Michael?
This is maybe a little bit off point, but just throwing this out for your consideration. Suppose we imagine God as a God that created a world in which every species has to compete for resources. And that means every species and every tribe has to compete for land. And God says, okay, just deal with it. I love you, I'll be here, but deal with it.
You answered my question with another question, Michael. Good one though. That's a good one for the confirmation kids right there. Yeah. We have just a couple of minutes. So last question. Do you think today, based on all the information you've received so far, and based on your understanding of human nature and geopolitics and all of it, taking it all in, do you think Israelis and Palestinians can see eye to eye? If you think so, raise your hand. There's one.
You didn't give any numbers here. The majority, the one, these two, this Palestinian and this Israeli, I believe this is, the one Israeli and the one Palestinian.
The right two, you get the right two in the room.
Right, exactly.
You can get them to see eye to eye.
Asking for 50% or, 51%. I'm not so sure.
Too much a blanket statement.
Yeah.
You don't like these monolithic claims the pastor's making. Yeah, Michael.
If instead of spending billions of dollars on bombs and jails and police forces, we spent billions of dollars forcing people to get into the room and talk to each other, they would see eye to eye.
That was the last point I was gonna make, which is, what if we stopped selling them bombs and started sending them food? And building tables for them to share a meal,
Yeah.
right? So, people of God, in your prayers this day, keep our brothers and sisters in Palestine and Israel close in your hearts. It's going to be a tender time for a long time, but certainly in the days ahead, as they remember this anniversary, and who knows what chaos will be inflicted on that very day. Would be unusual if there wasn't, right? I'm sad. So we keep them in our prayers, and we ask God to help us do better. Amen. Thank you for being a part of this conversation today. Appreciate it.
Let's continue. Continue next week.
Yeah, right.
Next Sunday, we're gonna hand the microphone to Gary and Ernest, and he's gonna help lead us in a discussion about trying to understand who is God and how do we each individually come up with and form our understandings of who God is. And Gary's got a story to share that will help hopefully inspire within you that deeper conversation. But we need to think about this God who created this world that also includes this kind of violence that we experience.
Solve it next.
Yeah.